Okay, now it should be, it should be, it should be share. It should be recording, right? Yeah. So now, yeah, it should be is recording right now. Okay. So now let's start. Oops, sorry. So now let's start today's lecture. Okay. Uh, this course is the introduction to artificial intelligence. Okay. And this is the first lecture. Okay. So in today's lecture, we will give you a overview on what we are going to discuss in this course. Okay. I need to do one more thing, view, and I need to say to single page. Okay, yeah. So, about me, okay, my name is Lee Kuan Yeung, or you can call me Kester. Okay, some of the students already know me already here. And uh, if you want to find me, okay, if you want to find me, you can go to Linkland Hub, the first floor, Unit C. Okay, the Linkland Hub, first floor, Unit C. Okay, about where the Linkland Hub is. Linkland Hub is next to Servo Hostel, in the university. Okay, it is at the opposite end of this building. Okay, far opposite end of this building. Okay. And if you want to find me, okay, you can find me through email, okay. And you can also find me during the office hour as well. But it is better that you send me an email before you find me during the office hour, okay. The reasoning is that Linkland Hub is actually room locked. Okay, so if you want to get access, I would need to go and open the door for you. Okay, so it is better that if you want to find me during the office hour, you send me an email such that I know when I need to open the door for you. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, it should be PM. I'll fix it later. Okay. Okay, it's just a minor typo. Okay. And as I have said before, you will need to check the Moodle regularly, okay? Our official channel of communicating is the Moodle, okay? If you want to communicate with me, I will prefer email. And if you send me a message through Moodle, I may not be able to read it, okay? Because I will check the emails far more frequently than checking the Moodle. Okay, so if you want to find me, you should send me an email. Okay, rather than using the communication features in the Moodle. Okay, the Moodle platform will be mainly used for lecture notes distribution, tutorial notes distribution, assignment distribution, and also the recording distribution as well. Okay, okay. And so you should check the Moodle regularly, okay? Because I will be posting the assignment and the lecture notes there. Okay, so any questions? If I am releasing an assignment, I will send you a class-wide email to notify you as well. Okay, so don't worry about it. Okay, I will do an announcement during the lecture as well. Okay, so any questions? Any questions? Any questions? If no, then let's continue. Okay, so this is the time and lecture time and venue for the two CRN sections. Okay, you are here. That means that you know where to have the lectures. Okay, so and also one important note is that in order for the student and staff to have the time to transit to the next arrangement, essentially will end the class 10 minutes earlier than the scheduled time. Okay. Here are the course assessment rundown. Okay. So you have the class attendance and participation. So you should try your best to attend the lectures because the attendance will be counted as 10% of your course grade. Okay? Okay, this is very important. Okay, you don't want to have bad results just because you don't attend lectures regularly. Okay, so you should attend the lectures. Okay, and for the assignment, there will be 30 marks allocated to it. Okay, the assignment will be written assignments. Okay, this course will mainly focus on the discussion of traditional AI algorithms. Okay, we are discussing those algorithms. Okay, and essentially when we are discussing algorithm by theoretical standard, okay, we don't need to attach to a single programming language when we are discussing algorithms. Because algorithm is essentially a sequence of procedure to solve a problem. It can be implemented using any kinds of programming languages. But to facilitate easy discussion, in this course, we will be using Python. All the algorithms in this course will be presented using Python code. But it doesn't necessarily mean this algorithm must be implemented in Python. Okay, but in fact, when I was a bachelor student studying in computer science, okay, I learned those algorithms using C or Java. Okay, using what language to implement those algorithms will not affect the understanding of algorithm, but for the sake of simplicity, I understand every one of you must learn Python or heard of Python in some degree. So we'll be using Python, okay? But this is an algorithm course, so our assignment will be mainly in the written assignment manner, okay? I'll be testing you on the understanding on the algorithms. No. There will be some short questions that require you to like dry run a algorithm, something like this, and get the result, something like this. Okay. That is, I will be teaching an algorithm during the lectures. Okay, and then I will give you some input, and based on the input and the algorithm you learn in lectures, you will need to manually compile the output of the algorithm. Okay, something like this. This is in technical terms that is called dry running a algorithm. Okay, so any questions? For the group project, okay, the group project will be doing a machine learning project. Okay, we'll be using a graphical programming interface toolkit that allows you to establish a pipeline to do some machine learning task. Okay, and we'll be having a dedicated tutorial to discuss that toolkit in great detail later. Okay, that course group project will be a 2-person in a group. Okay, and I will set up a registration page on the Moodle later. Okay, so any questions? Any questions? Any questions? And the last part is the examination. There will be 40 marks dedicated to the examination. Okay, and the examination will be in written form as well. And I understand that you may get a little bit worried about the examination. The examination will be in a similar style as your assignment. Okay. So the details of the examination will be discussed later. Okay. I will still need to finalize the details with the university level. That is the registry and our office, something like this. Okay. So the details of the final examination will be discussed later during the class. Later, I will set up a dedicated period of time for every one of you to ask questions about the examination. Okay, but don't worry about the examination. The examination will be in a similar style to your assignment. So if you pay attention to the lectures and do your assignments carefully, then you can understand how to do the examination as well. Okay. So we will have the late submission penalties. Okay. So we will have the following penalties imposed if the assignment and the project submitted after deadline in the following style. Okay. If you are 24 hours late, then 10% will be deducted. If you are around 34 to 48 hours late, then 30% will be deducted. If you are 40 hours to 72 hours later, then 70% of the score will be deducted. After 72 hours, then you don't need to submit your assignment. Okay, because you will not receive any mark for that assignment. Okay. So any questions? And because we are collecting your assignment through the Moodle, so we will be using your Moodle upload time as the assignment upload time. Okay, we will be using the Moodle upload time as your assignment submission time. Okay, so in case, okay, the Moodle crashed on that day you submit your assignment. Or if that occurred, I will be sending everyone a announcement, of course. Okay, but if touch wood, okay, if there is some accident, the Moodle crashes, and you cannot submit your assignment through the Moodle, then you should submit your assignment to my email, and the email timing will be used to be your assignment submission time or project submission time. Okay. The course objective, okay, we will be talking about the basic concept and the technique of artificial intelligence. Okay. In fact, we will be talking some basic AI. Okay, that is developed at the dawn of AI this domain. Okay. I understand that many students have a strong desire to immediately learn how to work on generative AI, especially the large language models. But this course is dedicated as an introductory course. So in this course, we will not spend a lot of time to talk about large language models. We will briefly talk about it at the end of the lectures if we have the time to do so. But in this course, we'll talk about some basic AI. Okay? You may ask what is the traditional AI you are talking about, Professor? Essentially, let me give you some examples. For example, any one of you here play games like real-time strategy games? For example, Age of Empires or Red Alert. Okay? In a real-time strategy game, okay, you are playing against an AI. And the AI player, that is the computer player, is able to decide what kind of strategy to move the soldiers, or move the tank, or move the infantry, okay, or move any unit in the graph in the game, right? When you are manipulating the unit that you have in your game, what you need to do is to click on a unit and then click an empty space, and the unit will automatically figure out a way to move to that places, right? So how computer games is able to show AI, able to show strategy? without large language models. If you recall, large language models is something that gradually get adapted in the past 4 to 5 years. And the reason why we can use large language models now is because we have state-of-the-art graphics card or computing card that support the execution of large language models. But in the 1990s, we already have games like Age of Empires or Red Alert, or if you consider the game in your mobile phone, those games have computer players. Those games have computer players that have strategy to play against you. So how we establish the development of those computer players without large language models? There must be some traditional AI technique that is involved, right? So in this course, we'll be talking about those techniques. Okay? So any questions? Okay? And understand that some of you may think these kind of techniques are a little bit old school, but I hope you treat this course as a course to train your ability to understand how an algorithm works. Okay? Understand how we solve problems carefully using algorithms and using data structures. Okay? I understand that in the last semester, you should have, especially for a data science student here, I have read the student list. I believe that most of the students here are data science students. Okay? I believe that most of you have learned data structure in the previous semester, right? And you learn what a stack is, what a queue is, or what a tree is. You know their properties, but it seems that you may not have heard an algorithm that utilize them carefully to solve a problem, right? Or you learn some basic application of those data structures or algorithms, but you really don't figure out how to use them carefully. So in this course, we'll be introducing algorithms that make use of tree, queue, and stack carefully to achieve the solving of some problems. Okay? Okay? So any questions? Any questions? Any questions? Any questions? Any questions? Okay. Here are some textbook and reference materials. Okay. For this course, normally you do not need to refer to the textbooks. Okay. I will include everything that you must learn in the lecture notes or in the tutorial notes. Okay. So basically you can understand all the things that I taught in this course by just referring to the lecture logs or tutorial notes. Okay? Okay? But if you want to explore more things on your own, you can refer to the list of readings here. Okay? But that are not mandatory. Okay? The most important things that you need to learn in these lectures will be included in the lecture logs I distribute to you. Okay? So any questions? Any questions? Typical stuff, okay? Plagiarism and cheating, okay? You cannot copy others' work. You cannot copy your own assignment, and you cannot do cheating during the exam, okay? Typical stuff. You are year 2 student now, so I guess you already know what plagiarism is and what cheating is, okay? So I will not go further on the details on plagiarism and cheating. You should know it already. Okay, so any questions? Any questions? If there is no question, then we will refer to the lecture one. Okay. Just another friendly reminder. Okay. The lecture, the PDF of the lecture 0 and lecture 1 have been uploaded to the Moodle. Okay, so you can check it on your own. Okay, so the first lecture is to talk about is to give you a introduction on AI. Okay, so there are many people who are trying to define AI in the past. Okay, if as you can see here, there are tons of definition. Okay, and if we want to define AI in a systematic way, we can do it in a chart like this. Okay, so you can see that we have two different ranges. Okay, we can classify AI through checking their thoughts, how the thought process of AI is done, or the behavior of the AI. Or we can check whether it is not exhibit AI behavior by checking whether it on the fidelity and the rationality. Okay. So the first category is the best possible way. One of the best possible way of making AI is that we just copy how human thinks. Okay, if we can create a machine that think exactly like human, then essentially that machine is the same as human, and as a result, we create artificial intelligence. Okay, but in fact, most of the AI we are working in the domain right now is not like that. Okay, the reason is simple. Humans don't even understand how human thinks. We don't have a complete understanding on how human brain works. We know the human brain are just a bunch of neurons connected to each other, and they send signal impulses to each other. But how the collective neurons can contribute to consciousness is something we are still figuring out. Okay, so we cannot create a machine that completely replicate the quantitative model of humans. Essentially, the quantitative modeling here means we just scan our brain and get a understanding on exactly how the neurons fire at what moment, and then we write a program in our computer to emulate it. But the reality is that we still cannot do it. Okay? But you may ask a question like this, okay? But Professor, I know that LLM is called a neural network. So why you say we cannot emulate a neural network? But the reality is that the neural network we are working on in computer science or data science right now is a overly simplified version of the actual neural network we have in the actual organisms. Okay? Okay. Essentially, you can consider the neural network in our computer science and data science as a bunch of small containing formula that get connected to emulate a very long and complicated mathematical formula. Okay? But the neural network that we have in computer science and data science is not the same as the neural network inside our human brain. Those are not the same. Okay? Okay? This is the first thing that I hope everyone can understand. Okay? Although we talk about neural network, we talk about deep neural network, we talk about neural network this term a lot, in computer science and data science, the neural network that we are working on in computer science and data science is not the same as the one you have in biology. Okay? So this is the reason why we will say quantitative modeling still doesn't work. Okay? And the second one is acting like human. Okay? We don't care about how the machines is programmed. We don't care about how the machines are created. As long as the machine behave the same as human beings, then we consider that machine is the same as human, is having intelligence. Okay? Okay? That is to, if we are using acting as a like a human as a criteria for developing AI, then we don't actually care about how the AI works. We consider AI as a black box. And then we compare the behavior of that black box against human beings. If the black box show the same behavior as human beings, then we consider it as having some sort of intelligence. Okay? Okay? So let's consider an example. An example, okay? The large language models that we are using today is actually falling in this category. Okay? Now let's consider the ChatGPT or the DeepSeek. I need to be very careful about what pronunciation. The DeepSeek and the ChatGPT we are using in our everyday life. Okay, the ChatGPT and DeepSeek is able to respond to you similar to an actual human, right? Right? And many people would already consider large language model is having intelligent behavior, right? Right? But internally speaking, we actually don't exactly, we do not have a well-established way to interpret or to explain how the large language model generate every response. Okay, we know how the large language model is constructed. We know how we train the large language models. But if you give a large language model and you give a response generated by that large language model and you ask an expert to explain how the large language models generate that response, usually it is not that easily achievable. Okay? You know the large language model can generate response in some standards. Okay? But you may not necessarily know how the large language, exactly each step, each calculation involved for the large language model, for exactly what calculation have been done. Okay, and what kinds of how the AI is able to generate that result. Okay, it is following a bunch of parameters embedded in the model. Okay, but deriving the exact step, forcing the model to give you a exact response is not something easy doable for the large language models. Okay, so essentially we are considering the large language models as a black box, right? We are considering large language model as a black box, right? Okay, okay. So we will consider the large language models as acting like a human this category. Okay, we create more AI that acts like human, and how we achieve and making a model acting like a human is not, it may be a black box. Okay, maybe a black box. Okay, when we are doing the large language models, all the parameters in the large language models are trained by machines. are trained up by algorithms. We humans do not fill in those parameters on our own. Okay? So essentially the large language model become a black box to us. And this type of large language models can still be considered as intelligent because it acts as like a human. Okay, so any questions?
What's the platform? So I only know it's a place where it stores data when something goes wrong.
So this is the reason why we call it black box, because black box essentially means that we cannot exactly predict what kind of output it can generate. We kind of have an expectation on the result that it generates, but we don't really can make sure every time it will regenerate a correct result.
But isn't an algorithm, doing things like, okay, step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, step.
In fact, there are some algorithms that is doing things kind in a random in it. That in fact there are some algorithms in the real world that will have some random element in it. That we will call it as a stochastic algorithms.
Oh.
Okay, yeah. So you can take a look on it. There are many types of algorithms that will not be deterministic and only can give you an approximation, something like this.
Oh.
Okay. And the way to check whether AI is acting like human, we'll use the Turing test. Essentially, we'll give a set of questions to the AI and to the human. If the human and the AI is able to give you the same kind of response, then we'll consider the AI is really a AI. Okay, so let's consider this. Okay, when we are evaluating how large language model works, we'll be testing large language models by letting large language model to do some real world test work, right? That is something like law test or a public exam test, something like this, right? You have seen the news, okay? And you can also consider these kind of testing the large language models as a kind of Turing test. Okay, we are comparing the large language models is performing as similar to humans using those public examinations. Okay. So if you have recall what large language model will do, it can have natural language processing capacity. It have knowledge representation. It have automated reasoning. It also have machine learning. Okay, so by looking at the large language models, you can see why all these 4 criteria. You can see all these 4 criteria being used in the large language models. Okay. Okay. And for the large language models, the knowledge and the reasoning is done by having a bunch of parameters embedded to the neural network structures. Okay. And those are just numbers. You are embedding those knowledges as vectors and storing them as the parameters in the neural networks. Okay. So this is the reason why we kind of consider the large language model we are having as a black box. Okay, those knowledge are converted as a bunch of numbers, and they are scattered all around in the neural network structures. Okay, and if we want to create a machine that that behave more like human, then we will also work on checking whether the large language models have whether the AI have the ability to do computer vision. Okay, and we also will include robotics to see if the AI is able to manipulate things like real human beings. Okay, and that will be considered as total Turing test. You can consider Turing test as having a machine and human, they are doing some conversations. As long as the conversations done by the AI and the human being are the same, then we consider it passing the Turing test. But if you're working on total Turing test, then we'll also consider whether the AI is able to recognize real world objects and to manipulate real world objects as human as well. Okay, so you can consider large language model kind of able to complete the Turing test in some extent. But if we are talking about total Turing test, then we may need to combine large language models with real-world robotics to achieve this. Currently, we still a little bit far. We are still not able to do it. But large language model kind of able to do Turing test in some extent. Okay, but of course, it is still not responding as good as humans. Okay, but it kind of show the ability that it can pass the Turing test. Okay. 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 So any questions? Then the next tool, think rationally. Okay. So another way of the design, it should be the alarm testing. Okay. If there is really a fire alarm, then the security will call us to leave. Let's wait. Okay. Think rationally. Okay. So essentially, we create a machine that can follow a set of rules to derive its actions. Okay. Essentially, if we want to create a machine that can think rationally, they will be creating a bunch of rules and embedding that rule into a machine. And each time the machine needs to do an action, it will follow the rule and deduce the actions according to the rules. Okay, that is called think rationally. The last one is act rationally. Okay, we don't care about how the AI machine think, but as long as the AI machine is able to take action rationally based on an objective. Okay, that is the agent has an objective in mind and is able to show its ability to perform its goal rationally. That we call as act rationally. Okay, so all these four are the ways for us to categorize AI machines. Okay, okay. If we have different aims, then we have different technologies, different ways to create a machine. For example, if we are creating an AI that acts like a human, then we will work on large language models. If we are creating a machine that thinks rationally, then we are essentially creating a bunch of rules and methods in a system, and the system will use the rules to influence actions. Okay, that inference process may not be the same as humans, but it will follow a series of logical procedures. And the last one is that when we are creating an agent that acts rationally, that agent may not act the same as humans, but the action that the agent will do will be rational, such that it can fulfill an objective. Okay, if you have different, if you want to have different ways to, there are different ways to do AI. If you choose different ways to do AI, then you have different technology to achieve this.
But this doesn't will there also be a scenario where it closes with something in order to accomplish mission?
Yeah.
It would decide to kill someone.
So
that's the rational choice.
So essentially it depends on how you design the agent. If your object, if you don't want it to occur, then you include that in your objective, then that will be avoided. So the objective is set up by you. So if you don't want the AI to do something, you just set the objective or set the AI to avoid doing it. And it will avoid to do that. You can consider AI under objective as the AI will examine its action against the objective to see whether the action taken is good under that objective. If that action is bad under objective, then it will avoid doing that action. Okay? It would something like list out 10 actions. And for this 10 actions under objective, I will store these 10 actions. I will pick the highest score actions and do the action. Then let's talk about intelligence, okay? And human intelligence essentially involves the learn of knowledge, the use of knowledge, and the discovery of the knowledge, okay? And the machine learning is essentially machine intelligence essentially is we try to recreate this capacity in our computer software. And essentially, we have, you may be asking one question. Why, if you have read the newspaper constantly, if you have been taking a look on the newspaper, you will notice that the development of AI is greatly accelerated in the past 15 years. Okay? Back in the early 2010s, okay, we actually don't have a lot of things like AI surrounding us. Starting from 2015, we gradually have neural networks, right? We gradually have deep learning, right? And we gradually have image recognition, okay? And then we have AlphaGo. And then now in 2020s, we have large language models, okay? If you recall the AI development, you can find that the AI development is greatly accelerated in the past 15 years. Before 2015, no one talks about AI. Okay? The thing that can be called as AI is the computer player that you can find in games like Age of Empires or Red Alert or LL, something like this, okay? But in the past 15 years, we have a boom in the AI. We start with deep learning, and then with AlphaGo, and then we have the LLM, okay? The development is accelerating in some sort of, it feels like exponential, right? The speed is gradually increasing, right? But why? Why suddenly we have a great development in the AI in the past 15 years? In fact, I will tell you that neural network is developed in the 1960s. Neural network is not as a new technology as you believe to be. The reason why is simple. The computers that we are having is getting better and better. New large language models, deep learning, or AlphaGo, they all are based on neural network, and the neural network is configured by machine learning. And to configure millions or billions of parameters in neural network, to configure the absurd amount of parameters in the neural network, you need to use neural network. You need to use data-driven approach. And in the 2050s, okay, we have the social network that collect a lot of data, okay, that can collect a lot of data. And we also have the GPU fast enough to do computation to learn to calculate those parameters. So that is why there is a acceleration in the AI development in the 2015, okay? 2015, okay? Starting from 2015, we have a acceleration in AI technology development. And the reason is because we have a boom in the data available, and we have a boom in the computing power available. Okay? Okay? That is the reason why if you read the news in the past 2 to 3 years, you will see a lot of AI industrial representative. They are talking about computing power. They are talking about GPU computing chips. The reason is that the AI development nowadays is driven up by the acceleration of the data collection and the acceleration of the computing power. Okay? Okay? So any questions? So any questions? So any questions? Any questions? And that is the reason why in the recent news, okay, you can go to the news and check many IT companies, they are stacking up a lot of computing chips. They are gathering many data. The reason why is simple, because AI nowadays is driven by data and also computing power. You don't have the computing power if you don't have enough 4090s or 5090s or H2000, H200 chipset in your company. So that is why the IT companies, they are stacking up those computing chips. And that's the reason why. Okay? So any questions? So any questions? Any questions? And essentially, when we are talking about intelligent systems, knowledge is the most important criteria, okay? Let's consider things like this. If I am using ChatGPT and the ChatGPT is answering me answer that is not reasonable, answer that is wrong, then I will not consider it as useful, right? I will consider a ChatGPT or a large language model to be useful if the large language model is able to provide careful and intelligent response to achieve the purpose of answering careful and intelligent response. Your AI machines, your large language models must have some knowledge embedded to it. Okay? Just like you cannot ask a kindergarten kid about how the universe work. Okay? The kids cannot answer you that because it do not have the knowledge to answer you that question. Okay? Okay? So why ChatGPT is good? Because ChatGPT has a lot of knowledge embedded inside, okay? Okay? Although the large language models is embedding those knowledge, although the large language models is embedding those knowledge using the parameters scattered around the neural network structures, but it still store that knowledge. It just using a form of representation that is not understandable by humans only. Okay, and we will call this kind of system as a knowledge-based systems. Okay, and if you have a system that store knowledge that is not intelligent enough, let's consider this. I believe every one of you have used Wiki in the past, right? I believe every one of you have used Wiki in the past, right? So Wiki is a site that contains the knowledge of a lot of things in the world, right? But you would not consider Wiki as an intelligent systems. Okay? Because Wiki is just statically storing those knowledge. Okay? If you want to get knowledge, if you want to get the things you want from Wiki, you need to search on your own. Okay? So the Wiki will not be able to make use of the knowledge that is stored inside to give you some solution. So in that sense, Wiki is a system that has a lot of knowledge, but we do not consider Wiki as intelligent because Wiki cannot generate solution for us just like ChatGPT. So that is why we'll consider ChatGPT is more intelligent than Wiki. Even though Wiki have a lot of knowledge stored inside it, but we don't consider Wiki as intelligent because it cannot make use of the knowledge involved. But we consider ChatGPT as intelligent because ChatGPT can make use of its knowledge involve and to generate solution for you to use. Okay? Okay? So as I said before, what we are working for is more than just storing knowledge. We want to have a system that using existing knowledge to solve new problems and learning new knowledge from new experience. Currently, ChatGPT is able to do the first one, using existing knowledge to solve new problems. And for the second, criteria, it kind of able to do it. Okay. For example, some large language model have the capacity to search knowledge online and incorporate those knowledge into its answering, but it is not as good as humans. Okay. Okay. Searching the knowledge from the internet and incorporate as a part of the answer is an ad hoc way of doing things. Okay. Remember, the large language models is storing its knowledge in as a bunch of parameters stored in its neural network. And when the large language model is searching on the internet and incorporating this new knowledge into its answering, the knowledge is not being updated into the large language model parameter itself. So it can make use of new knowledge, okay, and is able to solve problems, but learning new knowledge is still a little bit not able to do so. Okay. We have been talking about the concept knowledge a lot, but we still haven't give a definition to it. But essentially, what is knowledge? Knowledge can be defined as the body of facts, principle, acts, state, knowing, and experience are given by humans. Okay, so you can so this is just a general definition. Okay, and but knowledge is actually more than these standard definitions. Okay, and you can also call the actual experience with knowledge, concept, procedure, rules, ideas, abstractions, place, custom, fact, and association as knowledge, okay? And essentially, I will go to the conclusion immediately, okay? The use of the knowledge is an important kind of knowledge, okay? Okay? I will give you a simple example, okay? I believe that most of you here have taken mathematics examination in the past, right? Okay, so in fact, in the past, when you are taking HKDSE, you have learned a formula. For example, you learn how sine is calculated using a calculator. You learn how the cosine is calculated using a calculator. But knowing the sine function, the cosine function will not give you marks. You need to know how that formula should be used in what question in order to get your sweet marks from HKDSE exam. Or if you are talking about physics, you must learn F equal to ma, the Newton's second law. F equal to ma. Okay, you should have learned this law if you learn physics. Okay, but learning F equal to ma, this formula, will not give you marks directly to HKDSE. You must know the concept behind F equal to ma and able to use the F equal to ma to solve mechanics question in your DSE paper in order to get your marks for your physics paper. Okay? Knowing F equal to ma this rule is knowing a knowledge. But knowing how to use F equal to ma in a mechanics question in order to get your marks from the DSE examination will be the use of knowledge. Okay, simple as that. Okay, okay. I understand that this course will be talking about a lot of things that is quite abstract. So I will try my best to give you lively example to explain the concepts. Okay, I will try my best. Okay, to give you as much examples as possible, such that it's easier to digest. Okay. So if you think that I'm overdoing on the examples, just raise up your hands and I will stop. Okay, but I will be using a lot of examples to try to make you understand the abstract concept in this course. Okay, okay. So we can define knowledge using as different categories. Okay, you can define knowledge as decorative knowledge, procedural knowledge, and conditional knowledge. Okay, so essentially for the decorative knowledge, you essentially is talking about is stating how things work. Okay, that is the know what. Okay, and the procedural knowledge is talking about the know-how, and the conditional knowledge is talking about the know when and what. Okay, so for example, I even though you may not actually build a model in past, but I guess most of you have the understanding on how plastic model really works, right? Right. So that is Gundam models, okay?
Oh,
So when you are buying a Gundam model, okay, from a plastic model shop, and then you get back home, okay? When you open up the plastic model package, okay, you will find a instruction manual that teach you how to the sequences to put the plastic model parts together in order to form the Gundam.
that's see.
No, that will be the decorative knowledge, okay? Okay. And essentially it's just stating exactly what step you need to do what, okay? And for the procedural knowledge, for example, I need to take a part from the work up front, take a part out, and then I will need to clean the part such that it fit with other parts. Okay. These are exact procedures that you do with your own hands. So will be the know-how. Okay. For example, if I have plastic part, that plastic part have some rough edges, and I need to do some cleaning or filing on those unclean area, such that the part can join with each other. So those will have exact skills to do so, and that will be the know-how. Okay, and know when and know why will be we just refer to the previous example about F equal to mc. You know a bunch of physics formulas, okay? But knowing which formula to use in what question and how exactly why you want to use that question to solve a problem, that will be the know when and why. Okay. For example, if I have learned a lot of physics formulas in my physics course, okay, I have not learned a lot of mathematics questions in my mathematics course. But when to use a formula and how exactly a formula to be used to solve a problem is something that you need to think about during the exam. That will be considered as the know when and why. Okay, I believe that most of you have attended some tutorial sections that will teach you some skills involved to attend the HE exams, right? And in those lecture sessions, in those tutorial sections, the tutor, okay, of those extra tutorial will tell you exactly if you see that this question, you need to use this formula, this way to solve that problem, right? It is actually teaching you the know when and why.
The actually is know when, the why is not.
Yeah.
You see this, it's related to this.
Yeah, but the school will actually still teach you why actually.
But no one is.
Yeah, but you get the idea, okay? But I guess everyone get the idea what is know when and why, right? Right? Okay, so any questions? Any questions? And you also have the surface knowledge and the deep knowledge, okay? So essentially the surface knowledge are the heuristic, the experience knowledge learned after solving a lot of large problem or a large number of problems in the domain. And for deep knowledge, it will be referred to the basic laws of nature and fundamental structures and behavior principles. The domain cannot be altered, okay? Clearly, a lot of jargons people can understand, okay? So I will give you two examples to let you understand, okay? So I believe that most of you know what plumbing works, okay? So essentially you have a lot of pipes in your house that supply water and to carry out the wastewater from your home, right? So when you are setting up plumbing in your house, okay, how tight the pipe should go is something that you need to learn, okay? Or a simple example, when I do not know if you have this experience, okay? when you are building something, okay, when you are building a computer at home, okay, I will use a more simple example. How many of you here actually know how to build a computer? So, for example, if you need to build something, you need to do some. You need to use a screwdriver to drive a screw to a place, right? So, when you are screwing a screwdriver with your own hands, you may have the risk of over tightening the screws, such that the screw will get ruined. I guess you understand what I mean, okay? But if you how you determine whether you over tightening a screw?
By experience.
Yeah, you essentially just use your muscle memory to kind of feel the feedback of your screwdriver driving action. If you feel resistant when you are driving a screw with a screwdriver, if the resistance is strong enough, then you stop. But that resistance is strong or weak is determined by your experience. Okay, no one will teach you exactly how tight it should go. You do it. You know when the screw get too tight by your experience. So that will be called surface knowledge. Okay, and if you use some screwdriver to drive a lot of screws into a bunch of holes, then you get better again. Okay, okay, but we can also do it in a systematic way. For example, I can actually get a Torx screwdriver. In that screwdriver, there is a meter that tells me the torque of the screwing action.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I can use the torque measurement of that screwdriver to exactly know how tight the screw should go in, how tight the screw should be. That will be deep knowledge, okay? In some situation, the screw should be driven to a hole in a specific torque. For example, in some very sensitive machinery like aircraft. Okay, or if you want a more live example, for example, in some server that you are using, the CPU have to be screwed down under a specific torque. Okay, then if you have theory to support your tightening action and you are not based on your experience, and you are based on the natural laws of the nature and foundational structure of the behavior principles, then you'll be doing it full deep knowledge. You know why the CPU have to be screwed down under a specific torque is because if the torque exceeds, then the CPU will get damaged. That torque is calculated according to some theory. Then that will be deep knowledge. Okay? Okay? So any questions? Any questions? So when we are talking about abstraction and completeness, then you can talk about, we can categorize a law as rules, cases, and patterns. Okay? So for example, if you are working in a online shopping site, okay, something like Taobao or Amazon, okay, and you see that there are many people buying Gundam models or paints, okay, during a particular event, okay, particular day, okay, then you can consider it as patterns, okay. But if you are seeing people are buying Gundam models and paints that is the painting for painting the models, right? If you can see people are buying Gundam models and paints at the same time, you see that occurring a lot, and you are able to notice that co-occurrence, then that will be cases. Okay? 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 But we do not know the cause and effect, okay? We only notice that many people are buying Gundam models and paints at the same time, but we don't know which is the cause and which is the effect. Okay? Okay? And that will be considered as cases. Okay? But if you have rules, okay, then it should be deterministic and abstract knowledge of the things observed. Okay? For example, the people will buy paints after they buy Gundam model because they need the paints to paint the Gundam model. So you have established a case and effect there. Then that will be called rule. Okay?
So you mean rules like so everything were written in like propositional logic or
similar that. It will be rules. Yeah. So there is one thing, another thing you must learn, okay? You are being a data science student, you must learn one thing. Co-occurrence doesn't mean causality. That is two things occur together doesn't mean they have a case and effect relationship. Okay, so that is what case and rule are the differences between case and rules. Okay, pattern is a little bit more less complete than case. Then you can remember rule, case, and pattern using this kind of thinking. Okay, okay. So any questions? Any questions?
So you said it's a level, like these are levels of abstraction that completed. So is it like descending in descending order?
The rule is the most abstract. Okay, the case is less abstract, and the pattern is the least abstract. Okay, abstraction means the abstract. I will also explain what abstraction is. Okay, you should have learned data structure course, but abstraction actually means you get rid of the unnecessary detail and you just keep the core essence of something. That is called abstraction. Okay, okay. So, but the difference between type and forms of knowledge are not always absolute. Okay, for example, the heuristic may be the decorative or procedural knowledge. Okay, the cases may be in form, will be converted into rules with some transformation. And if you can do some summarization of the patterns, then it can be cases or rules. Okay, so you can sometimes the type and the forms of the knowledge really is not dry and cut. Okay, but sometimes we will come up with all these terms for the sake of easy discussion. And the reason why we discuss this is because it facilitates easy discussion if you are talking to other people. Okay. Sometimes you'll think that why professors need to spend a lot of time talking about this terminology? Because at the end of the day, you need to communicate with others. And you need to learn the appropriate terminology when you are talking with others. So that's why we go through all this stuff. Okay. But as you go, if you learn more in our bachelor program, you will get greater and greater understanding on how this term will be used. Okay, so here I will just give you a basic definition that you can get a start off. Okay, so essentially, let's talk about another concept that you must know: data versus information. Okay, I don't know if you learned this in your secondary school. I actually learned this concept in the secondary school. Okay? In the ICT talks. Okay, I don't know if nowadays ICT course talk about this. Okay. Data and information, they are interchangeable in English. But in computer science, data science, data and information means different things. Okay? If you have raw signals collected directly from the world, that is called data. If you give an interpretation on the data, then it becomes information. Okay? Okay? So information and data are different things in data science. Data means something that is raw. You collect it directly without any processing. If you do some processing and you do some interpretation, then it becomes information. Okay? Okay? Okay. So for example, I don't know, for example, if if you are taking physics course or chemistry classes in the past, let's recall the physics classes and the chemistry classes you have taken in secondary school. When you are doing lab, okay, you need to keep track on the numbers or the colors that you obtain in the lab light. Those are called data. Okay? But for example, if I am measuring the blood pressure of a patient, after I get the figure, I compare the figure against the average of blood pressure of the population, and I get the conclusion that that person has higher blood pressure than the average, then that will be information. Okay? Because I have done my interpretation on that piece of data, on the raw signal that I obtained. Okay? So although in English, we'll be using the word data and information interchangeably, even though I will do so sometimes, okay? But you need to remember data and information are two different concepts in data science. Okay? And you also need to understand one thing that is called garbage in and garbage out. Okay? If you get bad data, then no matter what kind of thing you have done, the conclusion that you derive from that data will be bad. Okay? So any questions? And I've already talked about information and knowledge is essentially when you do far more interpretation on a piece of information that it becomes knowledge. Okay? So you can consider the relationship between data, information, and knowledge is that we gradually do human interpretation on the data and on the information such that it gradually transforms into knowledge. Okay? How data is transformed into information and how information is transferred into knowledge is by human interpretation. Okay? So, and when we jump from data into information and from knowledge into wisdom, there are different kinds of interpretation that are done. Okay? So let me jump to a conclusion. Okay? For example, okay, I've already talked about briefly. Okay? So when imagine that you are a nurse and you are now checking the blood pressure of a patient. Okay? So for example, the blood pressure of the patient that you obtain is around 130. Okay? So the figure 130 will be the raw data. Okay? And you have the interpretation that the patient have high blood pressure. Okay? The reason why you can say the patient have high blood pressure because you are comparing the blood pressure of the patient against the standard average blood pressure of the population. You compare the blood pressure against a reference figure to determine the blood pressure of the patient is high or low. The high blood pressure or low blood pressure, it is an interpretation that can be done by humans only. The reason why we can say a thing is high or we can say a thing is low because we have comparison. Okay? So for example, I can say the boiling point of the water is 100 degrees. Okay? If you compare the boiling point of water against the average room temperature, then you will consider the boiling temperature of water to be quite high. Because the average ambient temperature should be around 30 degrees, and the boiling point of water is 100 degrees. Okay, so relatively speaking, the boiling point of water is bigger than the average temperature. 80 is really high temperature. Okay, but if we consider the surface temperature of the sun, the surface temperature of the sun is around 5,000 degrees. Then the boiling point of the water will be in a lower temperature if we take the surface temperature of the sun as the reference point of being normal. Okay, so you can say a patient having a high blood pressure or not is because you have a standard, you have a reference point of blood pressure to be called normal. And bigger than that blood pressure point, you call it high temperature. Okay. And the next point is that from the patient high blood pressure, you can draw the conclusion that the patient have high risk to heart disease with blood pressure. Okay, this interpretation is again something you cannot done directly by just having the information of high blood pressure. The reason why you can say a patient has high blood pressure then have a high risk of getting heart attack is because we have a lot of medical cases, medical examples, medical studies to support the rule that a person has high blood pressure will have high risk to get high blood pressure. The patient has high blood pressure will have a high risk to get heart attack. And using this rule applied to this patient, then we can say the patient has a higher risk of getting heart attack. Okay, so you can see that from raw data to information to knowledge, we are actually adding more external information, more external stuff to full interpretation such that we can generate information and knowledge from a simple raw data. Okay? Okay? And when we are working with data and information, we'll be having to do the following human activities. For example, we'll need to do communication, we'll do processing, and we'll do thinking. Okay, by doing these three activities, the human can collect data and can do interpretation such that knowledge and the information can be interpreted from raw data. Okay, and so this will, because according to the regulation of the university, okay, we'll end the class 10 minutes before the scheduled time, such that we can have time to transit. So this is the end of today's lecture. We'll be seeing each other next Monday. Okay, in the next Monday, we'll finish the rest of the lecture 1 and we'll start on lecture 2. Okay, and I will upload the lecture 2 to the Moodle so you can check out. Okay, and I will end the Zoom meeting as well. Okay. No, not this one.